And so I just want to take a moment this morning to recognize and honor all of the holidays, all the festivals, all the feasts, all the New Year observances of our soul family. Yes, because this is a month that really recognizes the sacred time for, excuse me, for many of our Muslim sisters and brothers, Christians, Jewish people, Indian people. There's a lot of sacred holidays that are happening right now. And what is so interesting to me, or let me not get into a sermon about this, okay. But what is interesting to me when we talk about the different holidays and religious observances is that there are more similarities between all of them than there are differences. So I would just invite you to join me in sending some oneness love vibrations to our soul family who may not end their prayers with, and so it is. We are one. So let's just take a pause and take a deep breath and just send out that love energy to everyone. No one is excluded. So blessings for Ramadan, blessings for Lent, blessings for Nuvatri and all the other observances of all the people. We are one under the oneness of the Most High. Amen. All right. I think it's important for us to just recognize the oneness. The oneness. And we get to do that wherever we go, wherever we go. So we are wrapping up our CSL March theme of cultivating authenticity. And I love this month. I love all the topics. I loved all the talks. I love just the energy of authenticity showing up all over the place, right? Showing up as, are you going to stand in your authenticity or are you going to run and hide, Melissa? Right? We get those opportunities, especially we become more present to those opportunities, I would hope, when we are in these specific themes and topics every month. So just to take us through the journey of the month real quickly, we started the month with everyone else is taken. And you'll remember that Oscar Wilde quote, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. And we really unpacked the vibrational code, the origins of the words cultivating and authenticity. And if you recall, the origin of cultivate is to care for and to till, like soil, like your soul, right? And the origins of authentic is coming from the author. And who's the author? The one Most High God. Yes? To be genuine, original, and primary. And so we remember that we are authenticated by God because we are awfully and wonderfully made. Yes? And then Sunday, we dropped the mask and the bushel. And that was inspired from the Bible verse, you are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a bushel, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before everyone that they may see your good works and glorify God in heaven. And I shared a little bit about the life of Peace Pilgrim, the woman who dedicated her life to be in peace in the world. And she walked more than 24,000 miles around America with her peace mission. And she reminded us again that we can't hide our light under a bushel. And she said, and I wrote this down, I have this posted in my office. She said, if you know, but do not do, you are a very unhappy person. If you know and do not do, you are a very unhappy person. So we must be obedient to what we know is ours to do. And it is ours to do, to be authentic. Yes, to shine our light in the world, to drop our mask, and to get to begotten. Let's get to begotten. Yes, because we are living a life pattern that is harmonious. And then last Sunday, my beloved brother, Rev Patrick, graced us with his presence. The boundaries build bridges. Say that fast 10 times. Boundaries build bridges. And he shared that boundaries are a limit that you set to define what you will or will not do, or what you will or will not accept to tolerate from others. The boundaries are containers in which our authentic self resides. So having clarity about our boundaries empowers us to know what is ours to do and what is ours to be in the world. And I hope that everyone's been doing at least one of the gets. Remember the gets that I gave y'all and that we've been adding on every Sunday? So just as a reminder, we have 6 gets. I'm going to share the 7th and 8th one today. Get yourself by being yourself. Get deliberate. Get inspired. Get going. Get devoted. Get to begotten. And for boundaries, let's just say get boundaries. And I'll share the 8th one later on. So that brings us to today. And today's message is no approval needed. And Chris guided us through a beautiful meditation to release that, to release the need for approval from anyone, because God has already approved us. And so what other approval could we possibly need but God's approval? Yes? So have you established boundaries around being authentically who you are by not needing the approval of others to be authentically who you are? Does that make sense? Let me put it this way. Are you waiting for someone else to give you the stamp of approval before you will be your authentic self? Because God has already authenticated us. We are already awesome. We are already wonderful, right? We have already received our quality control sticker from the Most High. It says good and very good. Yes? So there may be times in our lives that we find ourselves waiting for permission to shine our light, to be authentic, and to drop our mask. And for me, oftentimes in my life, that had been needing approval from my parents or a teacher or someone that I admired. And then today I discovered through the meditation that I was also having this thing about approval from people who are not even in this physical form anymore. So it was wonderful to release that. So I get to end March with that clarity. Thank you, Chris Ferraro. So no approval is needed because we have nothing to prove. Our book for this month is Chris Ferraro's Manifestation and Brene Brown's The Gift of Imperfection. I don't know if folks have picked up this book. It's really a wonderful book. It's one of her older books. It's probably over 10 years old now, but it has a lot of gems in it. And one of the things that Brene Brown says about authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. And we know that Brene Brown has done a lot of work around the topics of shame and vulnerability and courage. And there's a chapter in the book titled "The Thing That Gets in the Way." And what she says about this is, if we really want to live a joyful, connected, and meaningful life, we must talk about the things that get in the way, especially shame, fear, and resistance to vulnerability. Because when we establish a boundary of not needing the approval of others to be our authentic selves, we are developing what Brene refers to as shame resilience. Shame resilience. So this is what shame resilience means. Shame resilience is the ability to recognize shame and move through it while maintaining our worthiness and authenticity. Then we have to talk about why shame happens. So we could be feeling a certain way, but we can still maintain our authenticity and our worthiness. So the need for approval is tied to our limited beliefs that have not yet been healed, transformed, released, surrendered. And I've said this a number of times, but there really are 5 main core beliefs, 5 main core limiting beliefs. I am unworthy, I am unlovable, I am not enough, I am not safe or secure, and I am alone. So if we live from the place of believing that we are not worthy, lovable, enough, safe or secure, and that we are alone, then we have the tendency to look out of ourselves for validation, for value. And we could start living a life pattern of hustling to feel valuable. And Brene says in the book that when we struggle to believe in our worthiness, we hustle for it. Do you feel sometimes like you're hustling, like you're struggling, like you're pushing through life? I love this month's Science of Mind magazine. Reverend Michael Gott is writing the daily guides for the month of March. And he had one on March 20th that was called Nothing to Prove. In it, he wrote this: I know there is no need to prove myself in any way, but my unconscious mind continues to resist the deeper embodiment of this knowing, always offering evidence for the ways in which I still don't measure up. And he asked these questions: how often in my life have I made choices and taken actions so as to prove myself to other people? I do that. I do that. Less and less, but I catch myself sometimes. I do. Have you made any choices and taken actions just to prove your worthiness? I matter. See me. Yes. Did those choices lead you to feelings of worthiness or feelings of shame, fear, and resistance to being your authentic self? Oftentimes for me, it did not lead me to feeling worthy. Most of the time, it leads me to feeling exhausted because hustling will drain your energy, right? Fighting against being your authentic self takes a lot of energy versus just showing up and being the awfully and wonderfully made person that you already are. So I want to share a story about a young woman. She was about 18 years old. She had her first summer job at a corporation, and working at this corporation made her feel really important. She would get on the train to Manhattan. She would get to the building and show her corporate ID. She would take the elevator up to the executive floor. Now, she wasn't an executive, but she worked for one. And so that made her feel really special. One of the perks at working for this executive was if she worked past 7 o'clock, she got to take a car home. So they would give her a car voucher and she would get into these Black luxury cars. You know, the ones where the driver gets out and opens the door for you and closes the door for you. And then when you get to your destination, they get out and they open the door. Yeah, like that. So she was living the high life as far as she was concerned. So she would step out of that luxury car in her neighborhood and people would be looking at her wondering like, what is going on with her? She was feeling really, really good about herself. But this was a summer job and her time at the corporation was coming to an end, which meant no more luxury cars. So she decided that she was going to steal a bunch of the car vouchers. So the summer job ended, but guess what? Her luxury rides did not, because she had stolen those car vouchers. So she would call the car service and have that car service drive her all over the place, right? She was living a life at 18. She was feeling wealthy and she thought she was possibly feeling even worthy, because most of her life, she did not feel worthy. And this experience was giving her that feeling of worthiness. And then guess what? You'll know what happened. The last voucher, it was over. And then what happened? About a month later, someone from the corporation contacted her and they told her that they knew that she had stolen the vouchers and they were threatening to press charges against her unless she had paid back the money. Now, this girl would call the car service to pick her up from her house and drive her back home to her house. Now, they would send a bill to the corporation that would have the pickup information and the drop-off information. So clearly, this was not a mastermind criminal that I'm speaking about here. Now, she was able to work out a payment plan and the whole matter got resolved with the corporation. But what was left, which was unresolved, was the feeling of shame. She felt such shame, and that shame was magnified, and that shame triggered her feelings of unworthiness even more. As a matter of fact, she believed it was the evidence that she was unworthy, the proof that she was unworthy. And she carried this secret and shame for years. She told no one. She moved on with her life, oftentimes thinking about what she had done. She still had not forgiven herself. She still felt a lot of shame about what she had done. And she was now in her late 20s and she was starting on a new journey with herself. She was taking classes at a spiritual center. And one of these classes required that she take inventory of herself. So one of the steps of the inventory was to share something that she had not forgiven herself for, to share something that she felt shame about. And you'll know immediately what came up for her. The first thing that came to mind was stealing those car vouchers. And she shared it, she confessed it to a trusted friend. And that confession was what she needed to start to free herself and forgive herself. She was able to release herself from the shame. She was able to start healing the wounds of unworthiness that had driven her choices and decisions most of her life. She was able to forgive her father. She was able to forgive herself. She was beginning to see her life from a higher perspective. And she began to realize that she really has nothing to prove, right? This story is an illustration of how we can hustle for our worthiness for proof and approval. It also illustrates how this young woman claimed what Brene Brown refers to as her shame resilience, that ability to recognize shame, to move through it while maintaining our worthiness and authenticity. Then we have to talk about why shame happens. And she talked about it. And she understood the underlying core belief that had been running her life, the core limiting belief of unworthiness. Reverend Michael Gott also writes in that daily guide, Nothing to Prove, what if we could finally rest in the truth of our wholeness and trust that there is nothing to prove ever? What might we become? What might we become? What might that young woman become? Well, years later, that young woman became the spiritual director, senior minister at Rockland Center for Spiritual Living. Yes, that young woman was me. And I have to tell you, confession is good for the soul. It frees you. We don't have to carry our burdens around. We don't. We could lay them down. We could lay down the need for approval. We could lay down the need for anything that is not who we truly are. So there is no approval needed to be who God made you to be. The you that is awfully and wonderfully made. The you that is authenticated by God. The you that has a magnificent light to shine in the world. The you that has dropped the mask of shame and fear. The you that love has begot. Love begot you. Love got you. Yes? The you that is worthy just because. The you that say yes to this divine assignment. And everyone here has said yes to this divine assignment. And the reason why I know this is true is because you are here. You are here. You are worthy to be here. You are wonderfully made. No approval needed by anyone because God has already approved you. Every breath that you take is God's approval for you to live authentically as the representation of the divine itself. So are you holding on to something that needs to be released? Are you willing to drop the mask and shine your light more now than ever before with the knowingness that there is nothing to prove and no approval is needed? Let me ask again. Are you holding on to something that needs to be released? Something that you might feel shame about? Something that you may feel unworthy, unlovable, scared, alone about? Are you carrying that burden of shame, fear, or resistance to authenticity? I can testify to this. Confession really is good for the soul. It really is. And oftentimes we make things way worse than they are in our mind, right? We become the worst person in the world because we stole some car vouchers when we were 18 years old, right? So confession, confess it, talk about it with someone that you trust, not just any old body, but someone that you trust. It could be a minister. It could be a really good friend. It could be your therapist, right? You can schedule a session with a practitioner here at Rockland CSL. They will hold your confidence and see your authenticity and support you in releasing the shame, right? Support you in releasing and shining your light so that you can be unencumbered by the past, by unforgiveness, and by those limiting beliefs. So here I want to add the 8th get. Get free. Get free. When we seek approval from others, we are holding ourselves in bondage. You can't get free if you're not moving and grooving and being in the rhythm of life. You can't get free. You can't be authentic. So let's get free. Let's free ourselves from the habit of proving our existence. Guess what, y'all? God is not asking us to prove our existence. So if God is not requiring us to prove our existence, then why would we be doing that to ourselves? So let's stop today. The conditions are perfect to get free today. Get free in our consciousness, get free in our spirit, get free in our emotions, free in our mental capacity to hold ourselves as we move through this. All is really well, but we have to believe that. No one else could prove that to us. We have to know it for ourselves. So at the center of being who we are, we get to be authentically who we are. Why? Because no one else can be who we are. No one else can be who we are. So let's get free. So I want to close this with something that I read in the Living the Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. I have it here. Does anyone have this? It's like essays of the Science of Mind textbook. So it's like little bites of the Science of Mind textbook. I love this, Living the Science of Mind. So Ernest has an essay called Be Yourself. And that's what I would like to share, a piece of that with you in closing today. So let's just take a breath. I invite you to close your eyes and just go within and center yourself in the authentic self that you are right here and right now. There is an invisible presence hidden within us, which has at its source a higher power, and which acts through our actions, wills through our minds, and reveals itself in what we are doing. At the center of our being, there is a divine person, a unique incarnation of God. This is the source of all real inspiration, here and here alone, at the center of our being. At the center of our being is the real creative power. The question is whether we are living from this center, or whether we are thinking of ourselves as detached, separated, divided, alone, and inadequate. And I would add, are we living from this from a place of unworthiness, not being lovable, not being enough, not feeling safe, or feeling all alone? We all have direct access to the infinite presence, the universal person. There could be no more beautiful thought than that the divine spirit itself, infinite as it is also within us. And so it is. Ashe and amen. So this concludes our month of cultivating authenticity, the question of whether you are living from the center of authenticity or whether you are unauthenticating yourself by thinking of yourself as unworthy, unlovable, not enough, not safe, secure, and alone. I hope, I pray that you recognize again that you are awfully and wonderfully made. Peace and blessings.